This is CXO Secrets, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of business and technology leaders and reveals the strategies behind their success. Coming up in today's show.
Transformation is driven from the top down. It's adopted from the bottom up. And so if you don't attack that bottom up, what is the process? What is the path? Big bang transformations are difficult. They're messy. They're hard. They generally are suboptimal and take years to maybe instill into the organization, right? Because you just layered something on top of somebody's day. But if you can build a sense of trust with an organization culturally, do something small, get a big win. And as soon as somebody says, well, can it do this? Or can it do that? Or can we expand this? Or can we expand that? You've hooked them.
CXO Secrets is powered by EDS, going beyond connections. Find out about upcoming C-level events, experiences, and insights at edsxevents.com. Don Styer, Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at Serco North America. Thank you for joining us here on CXO Secrets.
Thank you for having me, and really looking forward to our conversation.
Right. So first of all, let's set the scene with Serco North America itself, because I think a lot of people might have heard of Serco, obviously, but might not fully appreciate the scale and breadth of what it is that Serco does. So paint that big picture for us, Don.
Sure. So Serco out of London in the UK is a multinational company with divisions in Europe and UK and Europe, Middle East, and Australia, New Zealand, as well as North America. And so I represent the Chief Technology Officer for Serco North America. Serco globally, if you can think of just about any thing a government would outsource, whether that be across defense, immigration, citizen services, they do it someplace. We generally do it someplace. In North America, our market is mostly around defense for the U.S. government, citizen services, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, and Canada. And so a lot of work helping build the next generation ships and airplanes, a lot of work helping our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines be more effective and be more efficient, and helping people in Canada get driver's licenses. So it's a very broad portfolio of work.
Yeah, a very broad portfolio, like you say there. Serco is one of those names that everyone around the world has heard of, maybe for reasons they aren't fully aware of. And that broad remit is kind of reflected, I think, in your remit as CTO, because there's quite a lot that fits in your office, as it were.
Right. So within my portfolio of work, I have your CIO, IT services, which is the back office or the functioning services. I have a Chief Information Security Office, so all our cybersecurity here in Serco North America, as well as Advanced Solutions Group, which is more focused on solution engineering, AI, advanced analytics, subject matter expert support from delivering surge support to our customers, if you will, as well as IR&D. And so it's a mix of corporate support services as well as direct functional support to our customers.
That is broad, like you say, the CIO, CISO, and so on, all reporting into you. Enterprise IT, customer solutions, R&D, a lot of different stuff. How do you balance? There's different demands that come with those, and your responsibility then is to try and hold them all together, keep them fed, keep them motivated, keep them with that strategic direction. What strategies do you have in place to make sure everyone feels as though they're getting their share of Don?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's really, it starts with the corporate strategy. So what are our strategic objectives? How does technology play a role in that? Oftentimes on the corporate side of technology, it's treated as a cost center, and it really shouldn't be. It's a differentiator. So as soon as you shift that mindset from a cost center to a differentiator, and then cybersecurity becomes the enabler to keep you secure and safe, And then you add in your engineers and your developers and data scientists and consultants, SMEs, and so forth and so on. It becomes a team, and it becomes a team sport because it becomes really important, at least at the line level, employee level, and leadership level, is everybody's contributing to the mission, whether that be the mission to the customer or the mission of Serco North America. So
And in terms of,
that's how you keep everybody
sorry, go on.
motivated.
Yeah, with such a broad portfolio there, though, are there times when there is, if not conflict, conflicting demands? You know, so and so wants budget, but then so and so wants budget, and there's only so much to go around. Or so and so CIO wants to move a bit faster, but the CISO team are saying not this way. We need to do it in a different way in order to make sure that we tick different regulatory boxes. Are you therefore acting as kind of like the referee or the course corrector there? How do you manage it when there is some potential conflict, or maybe not everything going in the same direction at the same time?
And then you add in, the operations business units that want to do certain things at a certain speed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really about it's pacing. Absolutely. Those are always some type of disruption in what you want to do, but you can minimize that disruption if everybody's on the same page from the beginning. And then it comes back to priorities and being able to pivot on those priorities. What's really important today may take a backseat to something that's really important tomorrow or next week or next month. And in today's technology world, that happens a lot. Governments have significant compliance requirements in the security world. Those shift based on policy constantly. There's new things coming out all the time. And, that's difficult for the infrastructure team to keep up with and keep pace with. So it really all starts with, what is our roadmap? What are we trying to achieve? How do we deconflict that? Sometimes we have to put some things on pause or have some people slow down. But if you get the foundations, and it really comes down to the fundamentals. Most organizations I've run into, it's like any sport you play. You learn the fundamentals. If you're really good at the fundamentals, you can make things happen pretty quickly.
An example of your work at Serco North America and in your area specifically in action has been citizen services, and you've been doing some really important work around eligibility management for health insurance. Give us the big picture on that.
Yeah, so roughly 10, 12, 13 years ago, we won the contract for the Affordable Care Act under the Obama administration. I think globally everybody calls it Obamacare, but it's the Affordable Care Act. And really that was the genesis of how we centralized from the government perspective of helping people get health insurance, affordable health insurance. Back then, there wasn't a lot of technology available. It was brought forward very quickly. And so we put 5,000 seasonal employees out there for what they call open season, and we started to put technology in place. Over the years, and really this comes back to the roadmap comment that I had before, working very closely with our customer, we built roadmaps of innovation, and we matured that over time. That started with business process operations, then went to RPA, then went to event-based processing. Now we're going to agentic AI in combination. So through that process, probably over a period of about 7 years or so, we went from 5,000 seasonal employees at a certain level to less than 1,000, actually less than 1,000 seasonal employees helping people get health insurance with 3 or 4 times the volume. And we did that by building basically digital employees in the system. So if you go to register, for health insurance. You go into what they call the marketplace. If something doesn't quite fit, you fall into a remediation process. And the contract that we help is to help remediate that in simple terms. And so that's a lot of phone calls. That's a lot of contact center work. That's a lot of case management work. So what we've done, very simply, is we've built digital employees, digital robots that emulate the simple processes. So we were able to really, it's really not necessarily about volume. It's even not necessarily about the number of employees. we were able to change the way that the citizen experiences that government interaction. And so higher quality, higher volumes, less employees, less cost for the government. And so it's been a journey. And it's probably it's our flagship digital transformation, at least in Serco North America.
And it sounds like it's been quite an iterative process there, like you say, from starting off with that cohort of 5,000 seasonal staff and then just finding ways to automate it based upon the technologies that were available, RPA, and then to the point where you're at right now, very topical, of course, with regards to agentic AI. How is it, I guess being on it, you could look at it as a kind of treadmill in a way. You're constantly, you think you might be getting to the end of the rainbow, but then there's another rainbow that you're going to be crossing when the next cycle of technology comes in. How do you keep everyone motivated, excited, and turn that into something which is, I guess, an organization and a workforce that thrives in that ever-changing environment rather than is just hoping to get to the next step, if you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So it really all starts with the workforce. Well, it doesn't start with the workforce. Let me back up. What are the objectives that the customer needs to achieve? And if you read the news, this is a very politically charged environment. And so policy changes and shifts very quickly. So you have to have a very dynamic system in place to address those changes because they immediately impact the marketplace. And that's very rapid. So it starts with what are the end objectives you're trying to achieve at any given time. But then it goes to what we call an innovation roadmap. And so for the next period of time, we have specific areas that we want to improve, new technologies we want to bring in, architectures we want to simplify, things we want to take back out. And that's all pre-approved with our customer. And so then it goes to the organization that you put into place and the employees that you bring on board, your architects and your engineers, your developers. They have to be curious. They have to be motivated to change. They have to be looking for that next thing. And that next thing, used to be, well, let's look a year out. Now that next thing might be coming out next month, right? So we'll never be on the bleeding edge of the early adoption, but we are pretty early in the adoption because we have a lot of folks that do a lot of research. How does it fit back in? The AI hype that cycle we're in today, which is really automation at scale. What fits? Because AI doesn't do everything for you. Agentic AI is not going to do everything for you. It's good at certain things and it's not good at others. It all comes down to what's the process that you have to go through? What would the employees do? When do humans actually have to be, in the loop, on the loop, or out of the loop? And be very specific with that because we're working with the citizens of the United States. We're working in the healthcare area, and we can't get it wrong. We can't rely on a AI having some type of a bad response. So we have to be very careful. We have to have the right controls and gates in place.
Let's take a step back and look at your career journey, Don, because it's been, well, an unconventional one, perhaps for a CTO. I don't know. You tell me.
Sure. Started out as a sailor in the Navy. So I guess the story is really how you go sailor to C-suite. So retired from the U.S. Navy. Did a lot in there, both in operations and logistics. And I got excited about technology. Oh, shoot. I can't tell you the date. It would tell you my age, but let's just say it was a couple of decades ago. And it was more of my background was in operations and business, and that was my degrees have been in. It was more about how do I make a process more efficient? How do I not have to fill out that paperwork? How do I use we'll call it DB2 and DB3 very, very early in my career of, okay, let me figure out how to use this, and just being intellectually curious of what I did. And then, so I call it ambitiously lazy, because I'm trying to figure out how to not to do those repeated automated or the things that you have to do every single day. Why do I have to do those? It's probably just built into my DNA. But so through that process, and then later getting a commission, going off to get my master's degree in business, I worked in the innovation side of, okay, how do we take what we do today and then bridge the gap with the technologists of what those requirements are, and then sit in the middle of that, and really just worked in my career. Once I retired, went into industry of how to do that both for the companies I worked for, the customers I had, both inside government and commercial, of how do we help transform? Because at the end of the day, just about everything I've ever done in my career has been about people, process, technology bound together by culture. And it's what I call an iron triangle. We've heard similar versions of this over the years, but the reason I call it an iron triangle is at the end of the day, we can chase any shiny object that's coming out. But if you can't get the organizations to adopt it, it just sits on the shelf. And I've seen that several times in my career. So the real question was, okay, do we have the right people? Do we have the right processes or procedures? Then the technology comes in. But the most important thing that glues it all together is, what is the culture of that customer, that organization, that company that you're working with? Are they ready for change? And so I've built my career pretty much around that. Went into consulting, what started building models that we could repeat for workforce efficiencies. Got acquired, and then started running AI teams, and it's been a skill to manage engineers. So.
Yeah, I want to come on to that iron triangle and the culture piece again in a moment. Although maybe your response to my next question before we go there actually aligns with that as well. But I just wonder, taking you back to your time in the Navy, what do you think that time in as a sailor working in the Navy has taught you about technology leadership that you do now that you couldn't have learned anywhere else?
Being on the receiving end, being in operations, and having to work very closely with various systems aboard Navy ships, it taught me very early on is you can't get it wrong. You've got to be proactive. You've got to provide clear requirements, insights, ideas, and that's really what spawned the interest for me. It was really about being more curious about how technology could help me, help my teams, help my commands, help my businesses move forward faster. Because at the end of the day, it's about not only speed, but accuracy, and technology allows you to do that. Years ago, on a golf course with a friend of mine, that said, we were having this conversation. They said, better, faster, or cheaper, pick two. You can't get all three. I've spent the last 15 years of my life chasing all three. So
there we go. Good for you. Good for you. And again, something that you said there, it really aligns with the conversation that we've had so far for me. And it's about, we can't get it wrong, and it's about that single-minded vision, single-minded cause that you have. And through the first part of our conversation today about how you lead disparate functions within your team as a CTO, it's about getting them to understand what the North Star is, what the corporate direction is. Once that is crystal clear, everything falls in behind that. That's the thing that matters. And actually taking that back to your Navy days, I can see a very strong line between those two. Let's come back to culture, though. And you said something that when we spoke last, actually, I think it really feeds into that culture thing, that every technology success or failure that you have witnessed, whether it's big or whether it's small, it's the same thing that keeps getting forgotten. You mentioned the iron triangle there. It's the culture thing, though. Why is it that culture? We know this. We've listened to all of the talk, all of the TED Talks. We've listened to all of the podcasts, frankly, and things on LinkedIn, whatever, about culture being so fundamentally important for transformation to be successful. But why do you think it is that transformations aren't successful, that culture does seem to be getting forgotten so often? Or is it not, and there are other things getting in the way, there are other hurdles?
There's always other hurdles. I mean, especially in the AI space, right? Data is your biggest hurdle.
Mm.
So there's technical challenges. There's, you maybe experience a lot of technical debt in an organization that won't allow you to achieve things, but or even budgetary issues, market issues, geopolitical conditions. But at the end of the day, those are all sidelined, at least from my experience, by transformation is driven from the top down. It's adopted from the bottom up. And so if you don't attack that bottom up, what is the process? What is the path? People are going to be skeptical. They're tired. You get exhausted from change if you're in the front line. So the way I've always experienced it is, big bang transformations are difficult. They're messy. They're hard. They generally are suboptimal and take years to maybe instill into the organization if you're not even dual processing, right? Because you just layered something on top of somebody's day. But if you can build a sense of trust with an organization culturally, do something small, get a big win.
Mm.
Can it do? As soon as somebody says, "Well, can it do this?" You've hooked them. Or can it do that? Or can we expand this? Or can we expand that? You've hooked them. If you say, here's this thing and it's really big and we've changed the way your entire life works, it's resistance. Think about the commercial tools and the culture. Facebook lands. There's no, I mean, I guess early in the early days, there was training books on how to use Facebook, but I don't think anybody actually read them. But think about that. They just picked it up and adopted it because they found a new way to communicate with each other that made it more simple.
Yeah.
And so why in the world, when we institute a process or a new technology that's supposedly going to uplift an outcome, do we have to have massive amounts of training? It's designed wrong. You don't get that element of trust with the community. You're just giving them something. So in my opinion, the culture is the most important thing. Because leading a technology enabled organization, if you get the right people, you nail the process, you're agnostic to technology, culture, that's what makes it all work. And that becomes more of a leadership problem or a leadership challenge. Then it becomes an engineering challenge.
And then kind of aligned with that, but maybe sort of at 90 degrees, obviously getting the culture right, getting everyone understanding the why, what it is you're trying to do, why the organization's trying to do it. That's fine. But people are complicated, people are different. You work with multiple generations of a workforce, those who are just entering the workplace, who might have a different attitude towards change because they don't have established habits, they don't have a lot of baggage, that people who've maybe been working in a job role for 20 or 30 years that might have a different attitude to change. So what experiences do you have, or what strategies have you learned for making sure that different types of profile within your organization, let's say, can all align behind a single goal, even though they might have different attitudes to change, might operate at a different pace, for example?
Sure. At its core, it's every voice matters. My career would not have got me to where I'm at today without really good mentorship. And sure, we have generational changes, different cultures and diversity in a team, regardless of, where you come from, diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds, diversity of age, diversity of experience. Study after study after study has been that's where innovation comes from. And when you put a team together and every voice matters and you build that team with the culture that says, okay, we're gonna attack this challenge and bring everybody together, and we're going to share ideas. Oftentimes when we bring interns in, the first thing I tell them is, you're not an intern, you're an employee. You're getting early, you're very current on what's going on in the area that you're in. So be curious, be bold, do really good work, build a sense of trust, and then you get this sharing. When you have a more senior, or I think I'm supposed to say late career employee, if you're in a change organization, you're in an innovation organization, a lot of times you're going to pick the right people to be that are more adaptive or more understanding or more curious, just lifelong learners. But at the end of the day, I've seen some amazing things happen where somebody with the experience comes in and says, okay, this is how it works. This is the context. This is what how everything stands. This is how the customer would react. And an early career person coming in, well, how can we attack this problem in a different way that fits within
Yeah.
that box? If you miss one of those two, then you get the legacy thinking of, well, this is the box and this is the only way we can do it. And then if you come in, with a brand new lateral idea, it won't fit in that box. But if you bring those together, you get magic.
I know diversity has become quite a loaded term over the last 2 or 3 years, but I think that's kind of what you're speaking to there. Diversity of experience, diversity of thinking, different profiles, attacking the same problem in different ways, and also there empowering people. You spoke about you're not an intern, you're an employee. That
Mhm.
is immediately empowering to someone in that position, that they feel as though they are contributing, which is great, absolutely great to hear. Connected to that, you've spoken before about what you see as the most single underserved skill in technology leadership right now. And we've already said that you aren't a classically trained engineer, but you've learned a good number of skills that have helped you to achieve what you have today, including translation. So just talk to me about that, the importance of translation in technology leadership. What happens when you get it right, and what happens when you get it wrong?
So I kind of in my career I backed into this, and somebody actually explained to me what I was doing, other than me actually perceiving what I knew what I was doing. But because I was curious, because I was ambitiously lazy, because I wanted to push the envelope, and because I needed to be able to communicate with developers and designers and engineers and infrastructure folks, I just spent some time learning how to talk to them, build relationships, uh, understand what they thought. Oftentimes I would enter a problem and I'd say, well, this seems pretty easy. But the easy things were actually hard, and the things that sounded hard were really easy. So this idea of bridging the gap between operations, between the business, between the front end of delivery, and the developers, the back end of how they support that, I think it's a hugely underserved part of our business. We get into these hypes, and I don't know about everybody else, but I get pounded with these emails about this AI thing and that AI thing and this AI thing and that AI thing. Well, what's the business problem? What problem are you trying to solve? What are you trying to achieve? And then that should drive what you invest in, what you build, what you deliver. And so by knowing enough of what an engineer does and how they do it, how they put it together, how they architect it, and then understanding what the business outcomes are, I think is the most important thing for speed. I've seen so many times where, hey, we want to do this. Boom. Nobody understands the value on the business
Yeah.
side. You don't get the adoption from the leadership side, but this is going to be good for you. We heard that when we were kids, when we went to the doctor, right? This is going to be good for you. Nobody wants to do that. Conversely, hey, we have this grand idea, go build it. Never works. Or if it does, it's a very painful storming, norming, and forming process until you finally get there. But if you want to go fast, what are your objectives? How do you translate those objectives and business needs to a technical community? Make them part of that conversation, negotiate through that process, bring everybody together early, and you can go.
And that's the job of the translator, and that is, like you say, a skill that is so important, and one that you said you backed into. You didn't realize that you were doing it, but you were naturally doing it all of that time.
Yeah, I had I think it was a performance review early in my commercial or industry career post Navy that said I had the unique ability to play any role, and I didn't know what that meant. And so I went back to my director at the time, and I said, "What does this mean?" He said, "Well, you can walk into any room and be the leader of a conversation, be the expert in the conversation, be a supporter in the conversation, or be some type of a transmitter." He said, "What does that mean in what I do today?" And he said, "Well, you have this unique skill to be able to translate amongst multiple stakeholders and groups." And I went, "Huh, I didn't know I did that." And then I started observing peers and friends and other people in organizations, reading articles, why this failed, why that failed, why this succeeded, why that succeeded. And I realized somebody in there had a vision and was able to actually articulate, communicate that vision between multiple stakeholders and groups. And that is the most important thing for speed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is a real skill that you've got, and fair play to whoever was giving you that performance review for helping you to realize that and then to be able to build on it for your career and also for your employees and those who you work with. Don, really good to chat through that. Thank you for telling us about obviously what Serco North America does, about some examples of success there and about how you have helped to bridge those gaps and to translate between the business imperative and the delivery of that. We do have some questions for you before we let you go, some questions that we ask all of our guests on the show. This show is called CXO Secrets, so I have to ask you, what is your secret? If you just put all of that modesty to one side, what's the key attribute that you believe has enabled you to do what it is you do today?
I think it's two things. Mentorship, like I said, was huge influencer in my career. And I had a mentor years ago that said, as a leader, because as a CXO, as a leader, you're leading that organization, and how you show up really matters. But they told me, as a leader, think about it in terms of King Arthur's round table. You have a team. That team comes to the table. And your job as a leader is to assess what that individual or that employee is willing to bring to the table and what they can bring to the table. And then you close that gap and not try to homogenize their experience, not try to force people to do things that they're just not skilled to do or predetermined to do, but find that special thing that person can bring. And then all of a sudden they're bought in because now it's fun. The second thing I think is, I taught my kids this throughout my life, was half a success in life is just showing up. And the most successful people in the world finish. And so if you break that down, it's really about finding the issue, fixing the issue, and then finishing. And you do that quickly. And you don't wait for things to kind of to boil and bubble up, which goes to some of your earlier questions, is how do we manage the team? Is if we have an issue on the table, we have a challenge, let's figure out why it's there. Let's address it quickly, come up with a fix, and then finish that off. Because a lot of folks stop at the fix piece. And then what they end up is what I call a hero workforce. So they're not fulfilling objectives based on process and outcomes and expectations. They're bringing 10, 15 people to a 5-alarm fire in a problem in your organization, and they do a really good job triaging that problem. But the problem with that is, because it doesn't ever finish off, they're just waiting for the next smoke to start showing, or a little bit of flame, and then go run off. So the most efficient organizations, the best projects I've ever been involved with have been this find, fix, finish mentality, and you do it quickly. You don't wait. So that's a secret, I think. That, and how you identify talent and what people are ready to do.
Putting that period, that full stop, as I would say in Europe, on the end of something, new line, new paragraph, moving on. That thing's done, it's behind us now. Yeah, really important. And that's an interesting observation about the difference between the fix and the finish and move on that I think is really important. Thank you for sharing that. We do a Pass the Question on the show where guests answer a question from a previous guest and pose one for a future guest. First of all, a question for you from a previous guest, Antoine Jacuteau, who is CTO at Believe, and he asks this question.
So everyone is chasing a Gen AI dividend right now. Can you name one specific AI initiative that you recently killed because it was just an innovation theater rather than real value, even if it looked great on the slide?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think of the best one.
There are that many, are there?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you. There is a plethora of AI, commercial AI tools coming into the industry, and it's mind-boggling. But if you work in a government environment, there's a lot of compliance, highly regulated environments. There's compliance issues. And so the next big thing might be the best thing, but you can't use it. And so there's been several instances of AI related tools, especially in the codec space, that have huge promise, but we can't use them. And so those get evaluated as quickly as we can. And obviously we kill those and try to replace it with the next best tool coming in. But the other area I would say with AI is it's not going to solve everything. And I know this might be a not a popular way of thinking, but when we think about automating process, and then we say and AI helps you automate process. And so it's really part of that automation process. So we've killed several projects that were overreaching because they weren't going to produce the results in a consistent basis. And like we talked about earlier, it's so important to get it right. So we kill those as well.
And this takes us back to the observation you made a moment ago about having your knights around the round table and assessing the skills of each of those knights. What can they bring? What do they not bring? And then allocating, tasks, whatever, accordingly. If AI is on your org chart, is a conversation we've had on this show already. If AI is on your org chart, sitting around the table, what tasks do you give them? What tasks do you not give them? Being very clear about that, I think, is kind of what you're talking about here.
It goes right back to the iron triangle.
Right.
The human, and a lot of initiatives is to try to take human out of the loop. Well, I don't think we're there yet as an industry. And again, it goes back to trust, right? So a lot of people don't trust some of this stuff. So it's got to come in and kind of build over time, like we did with the healthcare that we talked about. There wasn't a flash bang. That was a literal year-over-year migration that continued to mature up the value chain.
And Don, what question do you have for a future guest on the show?
So I have a non-technical question. As a leader in a technology space, what did you stop doing or not start doing that made the biggest difference in your effectiveness as a leader?
That's definitely a question we've not had on the show before, but as always, I look forward to asking it to a future guest. Don, it's been terrific to speak to you today. Thank you for joining us on CXO Secrets.
Sure, thank you. Appreciate it.